like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away. Man, it is pissing rain out there. But at least I got all my fencing done. There's a whole bunch of old fencing need to be replaced. It seems that every time I leave, my gelding decides he's gonna go stomp that fence flat and cruise over to the next door neighbor's property. It's amazing. But anyway, it's all brand new. He won't do that again. So anyway, what else? What else? The inbox is absolutely going off the chart, man. Everybody's emailing the living shit out of me. Tons of people emailing, lots of people, all of you know. They wish me to remain anonymous, which is fine by me. I was going to mention today, you know, watching a bit of the shit shows from going on all over the place, over the planet, and you sit there and you daydream and try to figure out what's going on and what's the meaning of this and what should you be actually worried about and trying to do and making sure you do everything that you like to do and trying to have everything in the right amount, entertain your energy in the right amounts in the right places. But anyway, I was wondering about, you know, I'll never forget, you know, talk to my grandfather. He's laying on his deathbed, absolutely 100% clear between the ears, meaning he was right there. His mind was functioning absolutely top notch. But he's, like he said, I know I'm out of here. He says, I know I'm not coming out of this room alive. But you know what he did say to me? He said that while you're laying there, you know your time's up. He said that you said you review your entire life while you're laying there in your last days. And he said that you think about all the cool shit you did, the fun things you did. But then he said that unfortunately is you are forced to think about all the real dumb shit you did, stuff that you did that wasn't possibly the best choice, and it ate you alive big time at the end. Go figure, right? And I'll never forget he said that. And what made me wonder was, you know, the people who are the profiteer people on the planet who profiteer off, let's say an example of creating and maintaining wars around the world. Those people that are directly and guilty of that, I wonder what they say in their end, you know? When they're getting ready to pass in their last days. I mean, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird and hard to picture, right? It's like, man, I really did it this time. Man, I did a real good job this time. I made so much money and killed the shit out of so many people. I really, my life was so worthy. Right? You gotta wonder for reals. You gotta wonder for reals what the dark people of our time and past times, what they must have go through their mind. If what, like my grandfather said, when it's your time's up, you review your life and you look back on the things you did, the good things, the fun things, the bad things, and the cringe-worthy things, and the cringe things you did eat you at the last moment. So you gotta wonder, right? I was just wondering, what do the dark people, what are they gonna be reviewing in the end? You know, and patting themselves in the back for. And so glad they did that this lifetime. You gotta wonder. Anyway, I know nothing's gonna eat me alive in the negative way at the end of this ride. I'm gonna make sure of that. Making sure of that. But anyway, decided to pass that along. Something to think about, right? All right, this is titled Many Things. It's fairly recent too, I think. Here's a recent one. All right. Hi Steve, my name is Les. Hope the year finds you well. Before I get too far, I want to apologize ahead of time for my punctuation. It sucks. No worries, man. I'll apologize ahead of time for my reading abilities. Adventure dogs getting into shit. You and what you do are extremely important. That goes for Scott and David as well. I found you by watching Scott's channel. I found Scott by watching Dave's channel. I consider the three of you the absolute top of whatever this is that we are also very connected by. I will say you stand out because I am known to be outspoken. I don't back down from shit, especially those assholes that are lying to us all. I stand up for what is right. By everything I've seen in your videos, we are very much alike in these ways. I grew up in the Sierra Mountains near Yosemite. I came from a family of hunters. My dad and uncle, most of my younger years, would take off for the backcountry 6 months of the year to trap. By the time I was 6, I knew what every animal in the woods was. So I was 8 when I became a knower, not a believer. My dad, my brother, and myself were on our way to my dad's favorite deer hunting spot. This is very, very far back in the mountains on an overgrown, deserted logging road. The road to get there was well traveled, however. This is where I seen Bigfoot. The general rule for us was to always be looking for deer. On our left, the mountain went uphill, to the right downhill. When this happened, I was looking uphill. My dad and brother, downhill. We're only moving at about 15 miles per hour or so. What I saw was a flash of a huge upright figure running down the hill. It was simply massive. Before it reached the road, I'd say 8 feet, it effortlessly cleared the entire road and landed about 8 feet or so on the other side without missing a beat. It had reddish brown hair. I was in shock. By the time I was able to make a sound to try and alert my dad, it had made the brush and was gone. My dad turned and clearly knew something was wrong, that I'd seen something not normal. My dad was not a believer at all to the day he died. Being the man he was, my dad stopped. The old scout told my brother and I to stay put and he'd be back. My brother was 7 years older than me and began teasing me, as older brothers usually do. 45 minutes later, he returned. My dad could track anything. He told us he'd seen no sign of track or anything. He told me I'd seen a bear. Didn't see any track, but you saw a bear. Right? He did tell me he found my reaction and how the look on my face did worry him a bit. We moved on to our hunting spot, and that was 1979. That day has stuck with me ever since. I've researched this ever since that day. It does at times consume me. I know what I saw then, and I still know to this day. Fast forward to this last year's season. My brother and I live in central Oklahoma. He is now a knower of his game cams on his property, got some pics on it that sure changed his mind. You should have seen the look on his face, Steve, when he put his laptop in front of me and said, "I need you to look at these and tell me what you think." I'm a low-tech guy, so I'm not sure how to include them in this email. Sorry. As the crowd goes wild, another person that says they got trail camera photos or video or whatever, and I'm not being demeaning at all, man. I'm just saying out loud. We got no shortage of people saying they got the photos and the videos, and they tell us in an email, which you are telling hundreds of thousands of people right now, and they don't include it. I'm good, but the crowd's gonna go nuts right now. I'll get it figured out and send them. Steve, don't ever let off the gas. Keep putting the truth out there. You, David, and Scott, what you guys do is more important than you know, and I thank you very much for that. Excuse me. You can use my name because I don't give a shit what people think. I do want to ask you, because maybe I missed it somewhere, what did B. Gimlin do to get on your bad side? Did I miss some info somewhere? Hope 2023 is your best year yet. Thanks, Les Baldridge. Les, thank you, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing that, being brave. One of the members of the Club of No Return and sharing your name. I have a funny feeling your dad knows exactly what ran across the road. Because if you didn't find any tracks of anything, then how do you say you saw a bear? But anyway, whatever. On to your question. It's funny. When I first came forward, a whole bunch of people were dogpiling me, and I think I mentioned a little while ago that they were going to share with me some physical evidence of what happened during the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I also talked to somebody who I trust. I absolutely trust, and told me that he had actually seen himself the missing frames, the missing footage from that film strip and what actually went down. So at the time, and I'm not scared of frickin' anybody. It's like, hey man, if you're a dirtbag, if you're a lying son of a bitch, the proof it's going to come out, right? But in no ways did I ever directly say anything how should I say, confrontational or menacing towards the man you just mentioned. I had a lot of people come after me at the time, and I'm like, hey, every one of you MFers, let's get it on, man. Come on over, let's meet up. Because what, unknown to all of you on the channel, on the camera, the shit I'm getting in my inboxes and stuff, and then words from other people were very off the chart and threatening. And I'm like, quit threatening. But we all know that people that threaten never do anything. It's those quiet sons of bitches that just go do it. Those are the ones that you actually got to keep your eye open for. But people that say they give threats, they're harmless. But anyway, that's another topic. What I'm saying is, there was, you guys are all familiar with Don King, right? Don King, the boxing promoter, the absolute sleazebag promoter who would do anything and everything and anything to promote. And another thing too in celebrity world and people that need to promote is when they can get a conflict going. If they can get some kind of a public conflict going, they benefit from it, from the exposure, right? Is promoting. So there is a white version of Don King in the Bigfoot Sasquatch community and reality TV people who took advantage of possible hint of the possibility of there being some kind of conflict and absolutely went out there to try to build up some kind of a conflict there between me and this person you mentioned, which is an absolute waste of time and a farce. And it's just cringe-worthy to watch what was going down. It was nothing. For me, it's like seeing a deer in the headlights for a second. Oh yeah, whatever. I mean, what do you expect from someone whose life is promoting, right? Promoters are opportunists. They take every opportunity they can. So that's what went down, man. And I actually had some idiot emailed me and threatened me directly because I apparently was causing potential physical harm to a senior citizen, and I was also, he's claimed that I was telling people where he lived and to go get him. I'm like, so I just said flat out, instead of retorting in a violent way, I just said back to the person, I go, hey, just so you know, you're about as smart as a pickle right now. The first thing, you're being used and easily duped. The first thing you need to do is go find where I said or did that. Go find the source, find a video clip or audio clip of me saying the words that you just said to me. Now, the next step will be to find out who actually successfully manipulated your simple mind and used you as a tool to help potentially promote this conflict, this direct conflict, right? And to top it off, right? I mean, think about it. Think about how cringeworthy this one is. It isn't cringeworthy enough. You're a frickin' reality TV actor, but then you openly admit to creating a Facebook page under the name of this old man and making the posts and talking for him. Right? Who does that? Who does that openly, publicly, even admits that? Anyways, I'm going down a topic that I have no time for, and I should be embarrassed to even address this topic publicly because it's just cringeworthy, right? It's funny, back earlier in the early days, I think getting back to the reality TV show horse shit, I had, I don't know how many different people approached me in the industry asking me if I wanted to do something. And every one of them, I'm like, I didn't even answer them, to be honest. I did not. I think one of them I kind of somewhat answered. He was asking about being able to use some footage from one of my videos, and then he said, oh, so you probably don't want to be on TV, right? I'm like, what? Seriously, don't insult me like that ever again. TV. Hey, what are you doing? You got tons of bones. Quit, leave my shit alone. Crazy dog. Anyway, so that's the facts there, right? So if you think possibly anybody out there possibly thinks of me having direct conflict with anybody, make sure you look up and find a dig and find the absolute beginning of the source yourself first, all right? So you don't get sucked into cringeworthy horse shit created by some fucking opportunistic promoter. Now, kicking them back to the curb where they've been for a while now and will remain. Let's get it back focused on the people right now. That's what our time is for, the people, all right? Now, where should I go? I should go way down the list. I think I screwed up and did a few days of recents lately. All right. Here's one. Mark this as red. This is from April or May 22. Mind speak in English, question mark? Answered. All right. Hi, Steve. You recently asked the question, how do they mind speak in English? Excuse me, from what I've learned about the mind and telepathy from various sources, it works like this. Your brain is basically an organic computer. Information is transferred from person to person in a similar way to the messages and other information between my phone and yours. The message is created, then encrypted into a universal language comparable to binary code, then sent, then decoded by your English-speaking brain. It's not the words that are communicated, but the meaning of the words. Your brain translates it into your language. This makes me think of an example that Christians might be familiar with. The ability of speaking in tongues. The Bible says at Pentecost, the Holy Spirit fell on the apostles, and they began to speak to the crowd that had come from many lands in tongues. Each person had heard them speaking in his or her language. They were amazed and confused because they didn't understand how this was possible. When someone truly speaks in tongues, you don't hear mumbo jumbo like you do in many churches these days. You hear it in your own language. A lot of people will be upset with that statement, but that's the fact straight from the scripture. I'm a Christian that forms my beliefs in the word, not church doctrine. Doctrine is what causes all the confusion and separation in the Christian faith. Thus, the umpteen denominations of Christianity. Wow, I end up way off in the left field on that one. Also, you mentioned people saying that Sasquatch people have a solid, bony plate across their chest, but you don't know how they know that. I've been meaning to write you about this for a while now because I want people to know how to defend themselves against these beings if they ever need to. My source for this information was blank's YouTube channel. A video about Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. He reads Daniel Boone's encounter story from either a letter or a journal entry, I don't remember which, in which a woman tells of an occasion she had to spend with Daniel Boone where they were at a dinner party and he began to share his encounter, but stopped and refused to finish because someone at the table laughed at him. It's hard to believe that Daniel Boone would stop because somebody's laughing. He said he wouldn't speak another word about it as long as that man was in the room. Well, I would have went the opposite. I would have made sure he sat there on his ass. The next night, she and Daniel went on a walk, and she asked him to tell her the story. Daniel said one day some Indians stole some of his horses, so he and his son went after them, tracking them for a great distance for days. They found them, but there were too many, so they turned back. On the way back home, they had ran out of food and had to split up and go hunting. I don't remember if he heard his son shooting or yelling, but he ran to him at a distance. He ran to him and at a distance saw this giant hairy creature picking his son up over his head and slamming him on the ground repeatedly. Repeatedly. I'm not knocking this story, but I'm just trying to, my brain goes repeatedly. I'm pretty sure a 10-foot, 12-foot tall being would probably only have to slap me in the ground once and it would be game over, right? Daniel Boone, being Daniel Boone, shot the creature and it fell. Daniel shot him in the eye. He ran to his son, who was unconscious but alive. He examined the creature and could see where his son had shot the creature in the chest multiple times. He cut open the creature, and instead of ribs, he saw a solid, bony plate. Blank mostly reads historical true encounters, and it was told as such. If it is true, I leave the blank. I always leave the blank out for YouTube channels. I don't promote anybody here. If I do, it's very rare. I promote all of you. Sorry. If it is true, and I believe it is, because Daniel Boone's reputation as a good, honest man makes me believe it, at least one variety of Sasquatch have a bony, plated chest cavity. I think you're a great man and a great example to all men of what a real man should be like. Thank you for your dedication to our cause, the truth. DD. Personal note. I've emailed you twice before. First email was a personal email about concerns I had, no longer believed to be true, so disregard it. My heart was... Okay, appreciate you. Okay. All right, gotcha. Hopefully I can... yeah, send me your email if I missed you. Hopefully I can remember to. I'll search your name in my inbox, see if I can find those other emails, all right? Now, thank you for that email. Absolutely appreciate it. Think that story is true? I have no clue. I've heard slight versions of it, and this is the first time I read it out loud. All right, so that's all I have for energy that's gone towards that story of myself. So obviously, I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know where it originated. I don't know. I don't know. I have heard rumors of the bony plate a few times. I have heard that you have to shoot up underneath the armpit to do a clean dispatch, or between the eyes and cut the head off real quick. I've heard all sorts of shit. So I don't know, but it's interesting, right? It's an interesting tale. I'm trying to picture somebody being slammed on the ground from a raging 10-foot tall, I don't know, let's just give it a conservative 1,200 pounds. I don't think repeatedly slamming would leave you very much alive, would it? But anyway, it's an interesting story. Interesting story. Interesting story. All right, here we go. What's this one? This is a long one with no paragraphs. I hate no paragraphs, but I can do it. This is titled Cherokee Elders' Knowledge. Love it. And my own experiences. Bracket, North Carolina / South Carolina, bracket. Dear Steve, my name is Josh G, and I am from and currently live in the mountains of Western North Carolina. 23 years old and have been fishing all across Western North Carolina, as well as hiking all over the Blue Ridge Parkway with my father, looking for rare plants as a kid, as well as getting a degree in fish and wildlife management. I'll bet they didn't teach about Sasquatch in that class. So I'm very up to date on the plants and fauna that are here in the mountains. It's been a long time. I've been a long time listener to your channel and truly grateful to find a place with real, true knowledge from the people and not from the scumbags that are lying, spreading fear to us on a daily basis through what they call news. So thank you, Steve. And now on to the reason I'm writing to you and the people is to tell my own accounts and experiences, as well as some knowledge that was just passed on to me from a Cherokee elder. Gold. Let's start with my experiences first and how I became so fascinated by the unknown from an early age. Every Sunday from the time I was born until my grandmother got sick and had to come live with us before she passed, we would go visit her an hour south of us near Table Rock State Park, South Carolina. Only 30 minutes or so from Greenville, South Carolina. We'd get there, eat, then after that I was free to play and go explore. The first experience is one of the earliest memories I have to date and still remember it like I was there yesterday. I had to be no more than 3 or 4 years old at the time. I had an old swing set right in the front yard underneath the black walnut trees and spitting distance from the front porch of the old white farmhouse. Every day I was there, I would go play on this swing, set by myself as either my parents and / or grandparents sat on the porch and watched me. But I remember on this day, they stayed inside as I went outside to go play. As I walked out the front door to go play on the swings, I turned left to walk down the steps, looked up, and froze. There across the gravel driveway and slightly down the hill to the tree line, about 50 to 75 yards away, I saw 2 brown to tan hairy things, excuse me, standing on 2 feet, watching me from the tree line. I don't remember a lot of details of the figures standing there, but I do remember this. One was much taller than the other, and the smaller one came up to about the taller one's mid-stomach. I also remember seeing darker to black coloration to where the face and hands would be, but no fine details. I'm tearing up as I write this. It's still so vivid. I get it, man. Keep going. As I noticed the 2 things looking at me, I somehow became unfroze after what felt like minutes, but was only seconds, and turned around and I ran inside the house crying and screaming that there are bears outside. I went straight to my grandma's arms and she held me as I cried and tried to tell my parents and grandfather what I just saw. They went outside to look, but nothing. And the only thing I got in response was, "There's no bears here. I've never seen one in all my years." I was told to stop telling a fib. So, from that point on, all I knew was I saw 2 weird colored bears. But I always knew there wasn't something right about these so-called bears, but I didn't know anything else at the time. I've always I've always been fascinated about Sabe for some reason and was always drawn to TV shows about them. And then I found your channel a few years ago. And that's when everything clicked. And I got that aha moment, or should I say, oh shit moment. I was listening to a story from one of the true, hardworking, honest people here. The story was about someone as a child having something watching them as they played. And they said it was a bear to the parents. They said it was a bear to the parents as well, and how they didn't realize it was something else until they heard a story like theirs later in life. And it brought them right back to that day it happened, and they started crying without any control, like they were there all over again. Well, exact same thing happened to me when it all clicked. I started crying uncontrollably and was brought right back to that day, and I knew at that point I'd seen no bear. There are two small populations of black bear in the state of South Carolina, one in the coastal plains near Charleston, and the other in the upstate of the state near where my experiences have happened. But I know that was no bear. Very rarely are they even seen around here, and even rarer are they a tan to brown color. A quick note on that, you know, on Vancouver Island, I think I've shown you guys some tan red color bears. Maybe one or two. But on Vancouver Island, it's like 99.9% black bears. But if you go inland to BC about an hour or two, then you're going to see all different colors of black bears all the time. It's kind of weird how it goes. Another experience I've had there is I heard a tree fall behind my grandparents' house one day on the edge of the field. I went to go check it out, and there in the field, a fully healthy green tree just pushed over. No wind, nothing. I chalked that up to a bear too until my oh shit moment years later. I've had weird feelings like being watched there many times, as well as finding a tree with a huge patch of bark missing, like it's been peeled off strip by strip about 8 feet up a tree along an old logging road. So this is a few of my experiences on this property, and I have a few more in other places, but that's for a later date. I finally took your advice and went to talk to a Cherokee elder that I know and have grown up the street from. He is a former Army Special Forces and has seen enough things for 1,000 lifetimes, Steve. This man is a true American hero and badass. I went today to talk to him and ask a few questions. And come to find out, he is also a medium and can see spirits and has seen actual open portals as well. You know what? I know many First Nations people who have seen portals and talk about them just like they're a regular item. He seems to understand them more than what he leads on. And now on to what he told me. He told me a few stories that were real eye-opening about us as a people and our true power. The first time was his own account and experience. A few years back, his sister was sick in the hospital, bad sick. He said he was mowing his grass one day with the push mower, and he just stopped. He said he knew he had to go see his sister somehow. So he went to clean up and go to the hospital to see her. When he got there to see her, she lifted a finger to tell him to come closer, and this is what she said to him. I didn't think that you would hear me calling you over the sound of that lawnmower. Steve, my mouth fell wide open as he told me this. I couldn't believe, but at the same time, I do believe him. And every word he spoke to me today. After that story, I asked him what he knows about mind speak. When I said that, he kind of chuckled and smiled. Then I told him that I heard from the people. The tribes used to have full meetings that lasted days without saying a word. Then he said, yes, I've seen it. He told me when he was young, the elders would meet around a fire and sit there all night without saying a word until dawn. Just acknowledgement here and there. He said at the time he didn't know why. What was going on, but he knew it was something he didn't want to interrupt. Crazy, I know, but that's not the craziest thing he told me today. This last story he told me was about a young girl about 45 years that went missing years ago when he was a young teenager. She had fallen in the river on the reservation and was swept away. After news of this, every fit man on the reservation went to go upriver to start a search working down. With no luck, someone said to go get two elder tribal men they know. One was a World War I vet, missing both legs, and was brought in a wheelchair down to the river. This sounds familiar. I've heard this or I've read it. The other ambled down with the help of a walking stick to the river to help the search. Both elders met up and they started talking. And one of the elders said to the other, "I bet I can find her before you do." The other said, "You're on." They began the search again. Excuse me, the one elder with the stick walked down to the water, scooped some up, then wiped the water across his forehead, then tasted it. He then said, "I believe she's somewhere upriver." The elder in the wheelchair said, "Yes, I agree." So they went upriver to continue the search. They came to another area upstream, and the man with the stick did the same thing. Took some water, rubbed it on his head, and tasted it, then said, "I believe she is a little down. We went too far up." The elder in the wheelchair agreed again, so they went down a little ways. They stopped again on the stretch of river that had some large boulders and one longer one. The one elder with the stick did the same thing with the water again, and this time said, "Here." And the other elder agreed again. They searched under and around all the rocks with no luck. Then the man in the wheelchair then said, "Bring me some water. I bet I can find her." So the elder with the stick dipped his rag in the water and handed it to the elder in the wheelchair. He took the rag and started playing with it and rubbing it around and then rubbing on parts of his body, but he did all this in a stage or sequence of 4, then said, "She's under the longer rock." They checked there and with no luck found nothing. The 2 elders sat there pondering. Then without saying anything, the one in the wheelchair grabbed the other's walking stick and threw it upstream in the river, then said, "The stick will go to the rock she's under." The stick floated downstream and hit the longer rock first. So one of the young men checked again, nothing still. The elder in the wheelchair said, "Use that stick and check again." And sure enough, the young man went back down and came up and said, "Something is under there." And at least they found her body. That's a sad story. Now, how on earth did 2 tribal elder men find a missing girl under a rock in a river by just doing something with the water? And how did those men have a tribal meeting without saying one single word? And how did my neighbor know his sister was calling from the hospital? And how does she know he was mowing his yard when she cried out to him? Well, honestly, I have no clue yet, but all this means we still have the power and capability to do things that we thought we've lost touch to. And I truly believe we all have some, if not all, these capabilities, but have lost it over years of technology and government suppressing our true power and capabilities as humans. Now, the real question, I'll leave y'all with this. How do we get back in touch with our true selves and relearn these capabilities such as our 6th sense? I have a feeling I'm on the right tail here, and we'll be having another talk with the Cherokee elder down the street again here soon, as well as another tribal elder I know. If and when I find out more, I'll be in touch. Thanks again, Steve, for all you do. Nothing but best wishes and blessings upon you and your loved ones. Josh G., Western North Carolina. Josh, appreciate that, man. That was well written and a pile of your time donated to the people. And what I am leaning towards myself is, we are all equal, right? All human beings are equal around the planet. We may have different color skin and eyes and hair at times or whatever, or heights or shapes or whatever. But what I truly believe why the First Nations people here in North America, which I know more about than any other continent, is before what they refer to as first contact, they were absolutely in tune with the earth and what it provides to sustain themselves, right? And sustain health. And that is all the natural foods around them right here. So, what happened when first contact came about? Well, they didn't need anything from the people that came here. And unfortunately, eventually the controlling freaks showed up. And what you can see, you know exactly what happens to people that don't need and can't be intimidated and don't fear. Well, you don't need us, we're going to annihilate your ass. And that's exactly what they still do today to not only First Nations, but all people, right? But anyway, the diets, the man-made, manipulated items that are fed to mainstream people, that are fed the population now are nastier than shit, right? And not healthy. Sugar has been pounded into the human societies, overabundance of it, and it's also sugar's been proven to be a toxic substance to human bodies. But anyway, before I go rambling off in another direction, I am, for me, take from what you will or leave it, I am absolutely firmly convinced that the food that we take in our bodies has a lot to do with just how aware we are and our natural capabilities. That's just me. From what I've been learning, looking into, I'm fairly convinced of that as being fact, right? I mean, me, look at my shit-eating attitude. And what have I been eating the majority of my life? Fish and game. Fish and game, right? And I run around the mountains and the forests, and I spend the majority of my life in the mountains and forests and the rivers than I do in the streets or the malls, right? I've never been a gamer in my life. I don't waste much time indoors at all. But my diet is predominantly self-acquired and quite healthy on average. And maybe that's got something to do with how my mind fires and my attitude and not fearing. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe. I'm going to go with it, though. I'm going to maintain the course. There's no way out of it. But I think that's what's going on. Anyway, babbling. Whatever you find out, and if you find out more, you know where to go with it. Right here, all right? Or somewhere. Just make sure you share your helpful knowledge to the people. All right, here we go. This is from January, February, March last year. The most terrifying night of my life. Hi, Steve. I'm going to do my best to keep this letter as short as possible. But I'm going to warn you ahead of time that it might be long. First of all, I want to introduce myself to you. My name is Angie. I don't mind if you use my name. I'm a Native American. I've had many encounters with the forest beings. Most of them have been benign and even friendly. But there was one time that I'll never get over. I have to really work at being able to gather the courage to ever want to camp again. After this encounter, I feel safer sleeping out in the open, where I can see all around me and not trapped in the claustrophobic blindfold of a tent. My life of camping and hiking by myself has changed forever since that night, and I'm not ashamed to admit that it was my foolishness that got me in the situation. Anyway, this is what happened. About 6 years ago, I dated a guy who was in a bad motorcycle accident, and he broke his back in 14 places. Ugh. It was a miracle that he even survived, let alone be able to walk after the accident. It might have been a miracle, but he suffered a tremendous amount of nerve damage that keeps him in permanent, excruciating pain. He was also confined to a turtle shell cast for a long time while his back slowly repaired. And that made his life difficult and cumbersome, to say the least. I couldn't imagine. I've had some broken shit on my body, and it sucks. The healing part sucks. When summer came, he told me he wanted to go camping with me. It was something we enjoyed doing, but we both agreed that he could only come along with me if we were in a tent and we had a good mattress for him to sleep on. He was still in the turtle shell and needed assistance in nearly everything he did. I took him to my favorite spot along the Priest River in North Idaho, an hour from where we lived. It's a very private camping spot that most people don't even know exists. It's in a dark little hollow that you have to crawl into with a Jeep or a good pickup because the road is very narrow and difficult to climb. Once you're in there, though, it levels off into a beautiful little sunlit meadow along the bend in the river. If you leave the meadow, there's a spot below it that has hard-packed dirt, and you can set up a good campfire without the worry of setting the woods on fire. It's perfect. You can fish from the bank, or in the summer, when the water is down, you can grab a shovel and try your hand at gold panning. If you're lucky, you might even find enough placer to cash in and buy yourself a cheeseburger. It's completely secluded, and I've never had to deal with other campers or people while there. It's my spot, as I like to call it. I've been to this place many times during the day, but I only stayed the night there twice before. And that had been the year before this happened, and 2 years prior to that. I enjoyed myself both times, but after dark, my camp had been circled by something in the night that had red reflective eyes. By the way, I don't remember bears having red eyes. I thought they were kind of yellowish green in the dark. Can you clarify this for me? Don't know. I had a bear in the flashlight in my underwear at 2 in the morning here in the yard last summer with my rifle, and I think they were just a regular, just like a dog. I believe. I don't remember red, that's for sure. Anyway, it didn't mess with me while I was there, and it stayed far enough back in the trees that I just felt it was watching me, but not causing any troubles. It had to have been large because I could hear twigs snapping periodically, and the eye shine was way up. I didn't feel like it was a forest being at the time, but it did make me feel uneasy. I'm not one to give up my spot easily, so I chose to sleep inside my truck canopy both times. It gave me a false sense of security. I'm a small woman, so I left the back sliding window open on my truck cab and also the slider of the canopy. And I pointed the nose of the truck out of the spot. I thought if things got crazy, I'd just crawl through the windows and drive out without having to get out of the safety of the enclosed truck bed. Nothing happened and I slept like a baby. I got up the next morning and didn't notice any new tracks around the truck, so I figured that whatever it was just went around. I got a drink from the river after I went to bed, and then went back up into the trees. That happened 2 years in a row. On this particular camp trip with my boyfriend, my thought was, what are the odds of having the same thing happen in camp 3 years in a row? As my dad would have said, it was plumb foolishness to think that. Of course it would come to check out our camp. Why wouldn't it? We were the invaders, not it. My boyfriend had accompanied me to a secret little spot in the woods many times and wanted me to take him there for his first camp out since his accident, but this time was different because I had sold my truck. Now we only had his Jeep. It was easier to get in and out of that place, but now it meant that we had to sleep on the ground and not on the partial safety of the covered truck bed. I set up the tent and made the bed as comfortable as possible for my boyfriend, and we sat around the fire for a while. After dark, there hadn't been any eye shine reflecting from the fire, so I thought that we had actually gotten by without having to worry too much about my visitor from the previous years. When my boyfriend was ready to call it a night, and his pain had gotten too difficult to control, I tucked him into bed, and he took a painkiller to ease the neuropathy. I let the fire die down and crawled into the tent and curled up to the .338 Win Mag. Good one. I had brought with us, which was the only thing I had besides a .22. Within a few minutes, he was snoring, and I soon followed. It was about halfway through the night. I woke up to the first twig snap. At first, it wasn't that scary. As you know, most of the time you lay there and you can guess it's just a deer tiptoeing around or squirrels dropping pine cones. But then the noises increased. It started off with twig snapping, then quickly went to full-on branches breaking. I could hear very heavy footfalls pacing back and forth behind our tent in the hard pack, but I couldn't tell if they were bipedal or not. It was really difficult to judge much of anything through the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. It didn't take long before I could feel my body turn ice cold, and I couldn't hardly move out of fear. I started hearing what almost sounded like a chainsaw at first, but then it got louder and louder until I realized that it was the sound of something growling off in the trees behind us. It started getting closer and closer to the back of our tent as it made the most horrible sounds I've ever heard. It got close enough that I could actually hear the snotty gurgles of it taking in deep breaths between each snarl and rumble as it paced back and forth behind us. I tried to wake up my boyfriend by shaking him gently and whispering loudly for him to wake up. Baby, please wake up. But he was sound asleep from the pill he had taken, and there was nothing I could do except lay there next to him and wait for us to be killed. I've never been more terrified in all my life. There's nothing I could do. I thought about shooting a round off in the direction of the sounds, but for some odd reason, I felt like that would only provoke it even more. I don't even know why I felt that way. The rifle I had with us was high powered. I would have dropped a bear easily. I could have turned on the flashlight and spotlighted it, however, whatever it was, and shot at it, but for some reason I felt like if I did anything like that, it would only turn this thing into a blind rage, and there would be nothing I could do to prevent it. I doubted my abilities to shoot accurately when I even doubted whether I knew how to operate the weapon correctly at all. This is the same rifle I had dropped a mule deer at 500 yards and a coyote at 400. My fear turned me into mush, both mentally and physically. I thought about dragging my boyfriend out the door of the tent, but he was way bigger and heavier than I am, and I knew there was no way I could get him out of the tent and into the Jeep by myself. Not only that, but what good would it have been to get him into the Jeep anyway? We had taken the doors and the top off. It would have only put us at feed bag level to whatever was pacing back and forth in the dark. Also, driving out there could only be done in low gear anyway. We would have escaped faster on our legs than in our four-wheel low of the Jeep. I felt like I didn't have any choice except to lay there and hope that it wouldn't kill us. This went on for a very long time, and I don't know why, but I actually fell asleep during it. My only guess is that I went into some kind of fear-induced shock that caused my body to shut down. Probably the adrenaline. I slept like a log, and when I woke up, the noises were still going on. Only now the sun was up, and it was probably around 5 a.m. I knew it wasn't a bear, a moose, or anything else I've ever heard before. It was breaking branches. And there were pine cones hitting the top of our tent. No bear would ever do that, and no one can tell me it was a squirrel's either. Yes, they'll drop on you when you're sleeping under a tree, but we weren't under a tree, and these were coming at us sideways. I tried waking my boyfriend again, and he stirred a little bit, but then he fell right back to sleep again. I remember grabbing the rifle and thinking to myself that it's broad daylight out, and I should be able to see what it was now. I gathered what little courage I gained from being able to see in the daylight, unzipped the door, and stuck my head out. When I peeked around the side of the tent to the back, there was nothing there. I could hear twigs snap, I could still hear the growling off in the trees, and I could hear the footfalls as it paced back and forth, but I couldn't see anything. Steve, it's like a park under those trees. There isn't a lot of brush there, and you can see around you at least 30 yards. The noises were coming from an area that was only about 40 feet from the back of our tent. I should have been able to see it. I'm not going to say it was invisible because I don't know that. I suppose it could have just been some kind of a weird acoustic ricochet that made it sound like the noises were coming from one area when they were really coming from another. Maybe it's throwing his voice like a ventriloquist. I'll never know. I know that as soon as I heard my boyfriend starting to wake up in the tent, the noises completely stopped. As soon as he was awake enough to get his bearings, I loaded him and the gear up and we left. He was disappointed because he wanted the usual camp breakfast, but I wasn't about to fire up any bacon and eggs with that thing out there. I kept my head on a swivel the whole time, expecting to get charged any second. I felt no safety in the driver's seat of the Jeep as we crawled up the trail and out of the camp area, so even the ride out of there was terrifying. My boyfriend had no idea what was going on. When we finally got out of there and hit the main road, I asked him if he had heard anything during the night. Of course, he hadn't. I told him what had happened, but I could tell by his nonchalant attitude that he thought I was just being a drama queen. He had slept through the entire ordeal and was clueless as to how much danger we had been in the entire time. I don't think he ever believed me. In fact, everyone I've ever told this to said it must have been a big bear that was just angry that we were blocking its game trail to the water. I don't believe that. I've had many bears in my camp before, and they walked all over the place at night. They've come between my head and the fire. I even found tracks one morning where one actually stepped over my head in the dirt and was half and half off the edge of my sleeping bag. That's creepy. I really don't think a bear would have spent hours growling and breaking things up just because we were in the way of his water. He could have entered the river anywhere on that bend. Our little tent wasn't blocking anything. Not only that, but bears don't throw things at you. There was something different, and you and I both know what it was. Steve, I've done some not too smart things in my life, but going to a remote place into the wilderness with a disabled person who was in a coma from painkillers and camping in a place that had an unwanted guest in camp 2 previous times before pretty much tops them all. I couldn't have put us in a worse position. I'm only thankful that it chose not to attack us because we were literally at its mercy. I made a stupid choice in taking us out there to spend the night. Things are different during the day, but I'll never spend the night there again. I don't even know if I have the guts to sleep anywhere else in his tent again. I've never felt more helpless and vulnerable before. That was just foolishness on my part. I've since tried to go camping again in remote spots, but I can't do it anymore without sleeping with one eye open. It truly changed my life, and I hope that I can get back to the person I was before I'm too old to do it anymore. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all you are doing for the patriots in our countries, and I pray safety for you and your family. And to you too. Thanks for sending that. If you've been here any length of time, it's a common one, right? That experience is an absolute common one with hundreds for sure, people, right? It's funny when I'm by myself or remote or whatever in a tent, and you guys have seen my tent in the opening of the videos. One of the ones I use remote. I'm like, whatever, when it's time to go to bed, I just go to bed and go, well, it is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to sleep. And I've slept like a brick. But one thing about black bears here in British Columbia, side note, people always say, why are you worried about bears? What about grizzly bears? Black bears are about as smart as a pickle. And they look at something wondering if it's edible and whether and how much of a chore it would be to take it down and kill it to eat it possibly. That's all they're thinking about. Grizzly bears and black bears, as far as I'm concerned, two absolute different animals. Grizzly bears are so intelligent, it's creepy. Black bears, not so. They are so dumb, it's ridiculous. So as an example, in a black bear camping, you can look into it. Black bears have killed so many people. It's just to say I'm in a high mountain basin all by myself, whatever. And I look across the basin and I see a grizzly bear, say 400 yards, 300 yards away or something, whatever. I'm gonna sleep like a brick. Just because I know that grizzly bear is too intelligent. On average, I have had one grizzly bear in all my life. Tried to do something really creepy, but if I'm in a remote high-up basin by myself and there's a black bear right there, I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping. They're too stupid. And they've killed far too many people. And furthermore, the only animal I've ever had that actually was stalking me, blatantly knowing I was a human being, and was looking at me as an absolute food source, and it wanted to kill me and eat me, was a black bear, and not a big one either. Just an average black bear. And that was so I'll tell you what, you guys, if you've it's something to talk about when you get amongst groups of hunters. There's always that one person that says, we get charged by grizzly bears every time we go hunting. Right. And or I was stalked by a bear, I was stalked by this. I'll tell you what, when you are truly being stalked by a natural animal predator, and it is looking at you, locked on you like you are a pork chop and it is starving, there's no feeling like it for alarm. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. We can't compare that feeling of alarm to the alarm and dread and terror you feel from one of these beings. This is a side topic. But I'm telling you what, you guys, I've had some shit-eating grizzly bear experiences in my lifetime. A lot of the nastier ones are in video form. Sharon's story on this channel, I believe, back in the earlier days. You do not want a natural predator, cougar, black bear, grizzly bear, polar bear. You don't want one locked onto you, stalking you as you are a food source. Excuse me. There's nothing like it. There's nothing. I've never felt so threatened. I felt threatened. Felt creepy from the people, the bush people. But excuse me. You can't feel more absolutely threatened, alarm bells going on than a predator's eyeballs locked on you and coming at you like this. Even though you're going, hey, piss off. They don't even flinch at your human voice, and they can see you from toe to head, crystal clear, 15 yards. That's creepier than shit, tell you what. Anyway, how to get babbling about that? Getting back to your story and something similar I heard, I was a cameraman on a big game hunt in Alaska. Camera guy. 2-week hunt. And the Alaskan guide from Anchorage, we got on this topic, and he said he didn't believe in this shit at all. But then he went, but however, though I did have a weird one night in Oregon. I'm like, of course he did, here we go. Because there's always somebody that has something to say, right? Regardless of their stance on the topic. And he told us he was visiting family or friends in Oregon. On the back 40, he had his golden lab retriever with him, and decided he wanted to hike up the mountain, spend the night up there. I guess some epic view, whatever it was. And they went for a hike, him and his dog, and they hiked up the mountain. Got way back up there, made camp, and he said that something circled their camp all night long, screaming at them with this effed up female, like terror scream. Scared the shit out of him. His dog was shitting itself. Pitch black. No, I don't think he had a weapon, and all they could do was just sit there and lay there. Well, this went on all night long until the sun started coming up, and it stopped, and they got the hell out of there. But he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. Sasquatch, right? There you go. You gotta be careful out there solo camping, you guys. I'll tell you what, it's a 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, but it's still the chance something crazy is gonna happen with what most people think is just a harmless animal. It's more scared of us than we are them. All right, what do we got here? How long's this? I think I've been here for a bit. Oh, this is a fairly long one, but I'm gonna do it. Now, Badlands of New Mexico story, 0203. Hey Steve, Eddie from New Mexico here. I'm sitting on this story, which I have shared with friends and family over the years, but I think I had it entirely all wrong until I came across your amazing videos. First and foremost, thank you for everything you do and telling the truth at any and all cost. My wife and I watch your videos daily, but more importantly, we listen. Now I'm 35 years old today, and this story happened circa 0203. The Beastie Badlands are an area here close to my dusty little town in Farmington, New Mexico, in the northwest corners of our state, in the Four Corners area bordering the states of Colorado, Arizona, Utah. The more and more I've done the deep dive into the subject, listening to stories from people in area or even just north of us to Colorado, where Durango is 45 minutes from our town, and even Pagosa Springs in Silverton, Colorado, which I have heard you speak of in emails that have been sent to you, have made me take a real hard look back and remember everything that happened on that crazy day and night that I'll never forget. Now let's go back to my story in the Beastie Badlands, which is on the reservation of the First Nations people in my area known as the Navajo. My friends and I went for a hike in the Badlands, and I must mention I had to be 17, 18 years old and didn't have the mature mind on me that I do today. So after our hiking, being teenage kids, we hop back in the car, and being young, reckless teenagers, we drive off onto an area where the vehicles are prohibited and do some donuts. Basically drive past the parking area of the state park where your car or truck is supposed to stay. Now, we park the car in a spot and hike up a hill to go watch the sunset. Now this is where the story gets very, very interesting looking back. And to this day, I can never return to this area without heavily thinking of everything that took place that evening. For years, my interpretation of what happened was that I maybe drove over an ancient burial ground and offended the spirits of an ancient Navajo tribe, and we had the interaction with a skinwalker. But like I said, after the countless stories from your videos, I fully believe it was an encounter with the Sasquatch beings. So here it goes. As my friends and I are watching the sunset, mind you, my girlfriend at the time, Brooke, my two buddies, Paul and Matt, and my faithful dog, Star, a German Shepherd Labrador mix, on top of this hill out of nowhere from what had been a clear and calm day, a violent windstorm picked up out of nowhere, and we were pelted with tiny grains of sand. I've read this. Damn it, I've read this, you guys. And it's a long one. And we're already at the tail end of my hour or so time, but I've read that. All right. All right, get one more out and then I gotta go. That's what happens sometimes. Sometimes I'll carry on, carry through with the email that I've read before anyway, because there's lots of new people here, but that one was too long for the time I have left, and we read it before. So, one more. Tell the big splash. Hello, Steve. I've been watching your YouTube channel for some time now. Enjoy going back and watching your older ones. I plan on seeing every one that you've done. I find them very informative. My name is Richard Price, and feel free to use it. I'm too old to give a crap. I live in the hills of eastern Kentucky in Floyd County. I've been a professional most of my life. Most all of my life, very well educated. I have several degrees, but I have an open mind about all topics that have merit. What I want to tell you happened sometime around 1980 at a place called Paint Creek. Back then, it was a very wild place. Almost no one lived out there, and for several miles there were no houses at all. Today, this area is at the bottom of a very deep lake. Back then, it was a very good place to wade fish. The fish weren't very big, and usually you wouldn't get any keepers, but those little bass were fighters. One day, out of 28 casts, I caught 27 fish. No shit. It was interesting. My brother-in-law Jack and I fished almost every weekend for quite some time. One day we were wading along catching fish as always, and Jack said out of the blue, "Let's get out." I thought he wanted a beer or something, so I followed him out. We headed back toward the vehicle. He wasn't saying anything, but he seemed to have a purpose as to where he was going. Suddenly we heard a very loud splash in the creek. It sounded like a rock as big as a basketball hitting the water. You could feel the splash well above the shrubs. You could see the splash well above the shrubs along the bank that were approximately 4 feet high. The creek bank was only about 3 feet high, so any rock, no matter how large, falling from such a small height would not have made a splash that big. Jack turned to me and asked, "Do you have your gun with you?" I told him I did. I never went out in the woods unless I was armed. Something happened when I was younger that I won't get into now, but since then I've always carried a heavy pistol. I was a very good shot and could hit whatever I shot at. Jack never ran, but he made a beeline to the vehicle. We loaded our gear and I asked, "I wonder what caused that." I never saw anything, but from the look on his face, he did. We drove off and Jack never really answered any questions other than it was big and it was black. Never any other details. We never did go fishing on Paint Creek again. A few years later, they turned the area into a lake. Jack passed away a few years ago from cancer. That sucks. Now I'm 65 years old and I still have a lot of questions about this old world. I don't know if I'll get my answers, but I'll keep looking. I hope this isn't too hard to read. God bless you and keep up the good work. Richard Price. God bless you too, Richard Price, and thank you for sending that experience in, man. It's too bad your friend passed away, because I was going to say, well, make sure you send him this video. You knee-jerk him into sharing what he saw about. It's so weird. It's just so weird how so many people see these people in the woods, and they just go like this. And they don't want to talk. Isn't that weird? It's such a weird thing for me, obviously, because I mention it all the time, right? I'm a broken record at times, but I just don't understand the part where people, they don't want to talk about it, ever don't want to talk about it. And I know a couple of people, too, who have that same attitude. One friend of mine, big dude, big kick-ass dude, and he blew a gasket on me when I was pushing him one time. He said, "You know what? I don't want to talk about it, all right?" Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so a lot of times I told you guys when I get emails with attachments, video attachments in my iPhone, I don't know why it doesn't work. I'll hit download, I'll hit download, I'll hit view, and it doesn't play. And it shows the play symbol with a broken thing in the middle of it. Shit. Then I have to somehow remember to go back into the big computer in the house and fire my email and search that out, which I forget about most of the time. And then I go into my notes folder. No, not notes, sorry. I go into my folder on here. What's it called? Files or something? Let's have a look. Yeah, files. And there's a whole shitload of downloads, and it works, and it goes into the files, and it works. And I was sifting through them yesterday, and I came across a video titled "Here It Comes" or "Here They Come" or something. And way off in the distance, you see an object running through the field. I don't know where it came from, okay? But if you know where this video originated, I haven't even looked at it up close, you guys, okay? I just looked at it on my phone. So what I'm gonna do is I'll share it again right now. Maybe I'll possibly put it at the beginning of this video, and that's what you saw in the beginning. And then what I'll do when I go to edit, I will zoom in on it and see what's up, see what it looks like. But somebody shared it, so I'm gonna share it with you guys. So there you go. Another handful of voices heard. Anyway, the favorite green hat got sold out again. Sorry if you didn't get one. And I grabbed a green hat from her yesterday and said, "Here, take that one off your stock count." And then last night, I think she said the green one's all sold out. And I go, "Did you take the green one off of the stock count?" She goes, "I think so." And I go, "No, you sold my hat again, didn't you?" But anyway, it is a pretty cool hat, but I think she's going to make, it's what's called the vintage legacy hat or something, but I think she's going to go see if there's a blue version and put white stitch in the front of it. I actually requested her to make that hat for me. But anyway, there's some other cool things coming. I'm not going to share yet. but really, really cool, which you're all going to appreciate fairly shortly. I don't even know why I just said that. I'm babbling. I gotta go. I even put the dog to sleep. Keep emailing me in your experiences, all right? Talking out loud. Don't be scared of shit. Don't be scared of nothing. And don't forget, when we're all lying in our deathbed, this stupid, cringeworthy shit we do eats us for breakfast during our last moments. So think about that one as you're going through your daily lives, all right? I'll be back again.